Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Riffhard podcast. My guest today is Brody Uttley from the band Rivers of Nihil. This is his second time on the podcast, and they're awesome and just re-released their 2010 EP Hierarchy with a remix that's out on Metal Blade right now. And just wanted to let you all know that my band Doth is touring with Rivers of Nihil and Cynic and Beyond Creation in March of 2025 in Europe. It's called the Aggressive Progressive Tour. So go look it up and come hang out with us. All right, let's get into it. Brody, welcome back.
Thanks for having me. Good to be back.
Pleasure to have you. I'm curious about something.
Okay.
When you go back to old material, and you hear old riffs, old songs, I mean, the EPs from 2010. So I imagine, I don't know, but I imagine that those songs are older by some, probably by a lot. I don't know. I'm just thinking about most bands with like first releases or early releases tend to have material that's been around for a long time. So I'm just guessing that that's the case. And going back and putting that stuff out, does listening to old material ever, like, how did it make you feel? I'm not going to put words in your mouth. How does it make you feel to hear old stuff?
It's definitely, a trip down memory lane for sure. I mean, if being completely honest here, some of the stuff that, from way back then is definitely like laughable at this point, to just like, not that it's bad material or anything. Obviously, like we recently, for those that don't know, we just re-released our EP from 2010. Not that we think that material's bad or anything, but definitely funny for me, at least, listening back to a lot of that material and just seeing how we were just really just going for it, like writing in a room together, completely ignoring like any sort of, like songwriting structure, recurring anything, like melodic themes, anything, anything like what we are today is it's like a totally different band at this point. So definitely interesting listening back to some of it, going through, the sessions for those old songs from back in 2009. I mean, definitely, like you said, some of that stuff was written probably in like 2007, 2008, because I think some of the stuff from that first EP was from previous bands, really. So it's definitely old. And it's kind of bizarre too, because a lot of people, when we released that EP, were hearing it for the very first time. So I think some people thought that it was new material, or some people reacted to it as though it was new material. So it was kind of a bizarre thing for some of us to just like look through that.
I had that happen.
Yeah, it's like, because it's a remix, and like on Spotify it's marked as having been released in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually from 2010, and it's never been on streaming before. So a lot of people who didn't know that EP existed, which is most people, thought that it was a new release. So it was funny. It's just funny. There's a lot of funny comments that I read.
I can imagine your Prog fans being like, "What is going on?"
Yeah, like some of the comments were really. There were definitely some laughable comments, like people saying, "Oh man, like they must, having recently, lost their like vocalist of however many years, they must be like trying to really go for the heavy sound again." And other comments were like, this new guy sucks, like I wish the old guy was back. It's like, that is the old guy. It's like, you don't even. So yeah, it was definitely funny, but I mean, it's cool to have it out though, be able to present that early stuff, give people a glimpse into our past. I mean, we definitely, we're a much different sounding band back in the day, from what we are now. So it was a cool thing to see. But yeah, definitely would not write stuff like that these days, so it's just it's a little snapshot in the past for sure.
Yeah, old stuff makes me feel kind of weird. Though sometimes I'm like, yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, I mean,
but then
Sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
like old stuff is definitely, if it really sucked, you probably wouldn't still be doing this. So there's that where it couldn't be that bad if you kept going to this point. So that's the thing I tell myself is like time and place, but still it makes me feel a little weird sometimes. Like I never would do that idea now.
Yeah, I think that early stuff for Rivers of Nihil, at least, I think at that point we were really just trying to like play on like the death metal blast speedy parts. We were trying to play as fast as humanly possible, be as tech as humanly possible, and then have like the biggest like slam parts possible to make our friends flip, local band X's merch table. Like that was like really what that early stuff was. So it's funny. It's definitely time and place for sure. And yeah, like you said, if we really thought it sucked, we wouldn't still be doing this probably, but definitely, different, just totally different time for sure.
When you're writing, do you ever go back to old stuff that didn't make it to a record, or is it just kind of in the past? Everything new is actually new.
Uh, I guess there, like there, usually what ends up happening is I'll write something at the end of when we're working on a new record. I'll end up writing something really like close to the end, or like really close to the time that we're like about to go into the studio. And a few times stuff has been shelved from that period just because we didn't have enough time to develop it. So we'll like pick that back up on the next cycle, and that'll usually be like the first thing we end up working on. But usually it's a fresh start. For the most part, I would say I used to, when I would write, I would really just focus on one song at a time and just like really like make each, like just put all my energy into working on one song at a time. And over the years, I've noticed that my writing style has basically completely changed. Nowadays, I will start a bunch of different ideas and basically we'll go through that material with the guys and figure out which stuff sounds like it could be developed into something cool and which stuff we might want to hold on to for later. So it's changed over the years, I would say.
All right. Before we get back to this episode, I want to take a minute to talk about Riffhard, riffhard.com, not the Riffhard podcast, because this podcast is actually tied to our online school, Riffhard. And if you're new here, it's the world's best online school for modern metal guitarists. We've got hundreds of lessons from guitar players such as Javier Reyes, Jason Richardson, Wes Hawk, Dan Sugarman, Miles Dimitri Baker. Man, I could just keep on going on. Aaron Marshall from Intervals, Mike Stringer of Spirit Box. I'm reading now because I don't want to leave anybody off. Dean Lamb of Arcspire. It just goes on and on. It's like all the best of the best. And you get tons more than just lessons with them. You get instant access when you join, but there's also all kinds of challenges. Like once a month, we do something like 10-day down picking challenge, or a 10-day tremolo picking challenge, or a 10-day alternate picking challenge, where we really guide you through the lessons and make sure that everybody is getting better. We're not just giving you these videos and sending you out into the wilderness to fend for yourself. We are right there with you. We also do 6 songwriting challenges. Like we have a monthly one called King of the Riff, where we give you a brief, like write a Spartan war anthem or write a technical death metal song with like some criteria. And there's prizes that include guitars and cables and all kinds of cool gear. And we also have private Facebook and Discord communities of like-minded and supportive people, no assholes. That's really, really important to include. Now, with Riffhard, you also get a subscription to Nail the Mix. They live under the same site. So in Nail the Mix, you get to learn how to mix metal. You also get access to Buster Otoholm's Beginner's Guide to Recording Metal. So if you're just playing guitar and trying to record yourself, you have a band and you want to make demos for your band members, or you want to make your own demos, but you just can't get them to sound anything but garbage, or you just can't get past the starting gate, it's too complicated, we've got you covered. Buster Otoholm will show you how to do it. And also, if you want to take it further and actually learn how to mix, there's no place better than Nail the Mix over at URM Academy. And that's all included with Riffhard subscription. All right, so if that sounds interesting, you want to check it out, go to riffhard.com. I'll see you there. And let's get back into this episode. Do you ever do that thing where that, like songwriters talk about, of like writing an entire song in like one sitting? That sort of lightning strike writing session?
Yeah, I would say that actually on this most recent record that we completed recording, it's not out yet, but there's a song on it that will be one of the singles that I would say probably 80 to 90% of it I wrote in an afternoon after finishing up another song. I guess, I'll get on these snowballs of creativity, and I think I probably finished up one song, was feeling stoked enough to probably at the tail end of the session, like when I had my DAW open, just like maybe start another song at the end. Because a lot of times what I'll do is I'll have one song that I'm working on, and then I'll scroll to the end of the session and just like record a little idea or something that I get that's cool, but not like related to, like definitely wouldn't make it into whatever song I'm focused on. And then when I'm done with that song, I'll move on to the thing that I put at the end of the session. And there was definitely one song on this record that will be coming out next year or this year, depending on when this episode comes out, that was mostly written in an afternoon, I would say. And that's cool because I would say that I've never done that before. I've been a pretty, not slow, but couple weeks, kind of like a 1 to 3 weeks or longer to put a song together. Never really been a write a song in an afternoon kind of guy, I guess. So, but yes, to answer your question, that did happen recently, and it was a cool feeling because I felt like I didn't think about it too much. It just laid it down really, and it just really feels like it was something that just happened, and it felt natural, felt right, and the final product ended up sounding really awesome. And it's going to be, like I said, it'll be one of the singles that's going to be put out to promote the record.
Yeah, I think for like the more technical or prog genres, it's harder to do that just because longer songs or multiple different types of parts, and so much of it is also related to how it's actually played, as opposed to songwriting songs are kind of independent of their arrangement, where I think metal and prog have a lot to do with their arrangement. It's like in the DNA of it. So I think it's more rare, but I've noticed personally that when I've done that, and it's not super common, but when it has happened, it's been better stuff. Like the songs that people tend to like the most are the ones, by us at least, are the ones that happened really fast. Overall, not 100% of the time, but usually it's a pretty good track record with those.
Yeah, it's definitely a song that we're all very stoked on, and it's kind of related to what you're talking about, but a little different. On the last 2 records, we've had songs so on the last record, The Work, that we put out in 2021, and then on this new record that will be coming out, we had a song on each of those records that we were just going to toss, really. I had like a chorus or like a big chunk of the song, and we all kind of agreed like, nah, this isn't very good. And that song, we ended up completing it, and that song actually ended up being the biggest song. And similarly, we had another song like that we were just going to toss because we didn't feel like it related or was really good enough to be part of the material on this new record that ended up becoming one of our favorite songs, and again will also be a single. So yeah, it's weird, those kind of like in the moment decisions oftentimes end up being, or last minute decisions really end up being, some of the stuff that works out the best for us. So it's interesting.
That song you're talking about with the chorus, that wasn't up to snuff, did you keep that chorus and just change the rest of the song, or did you work on it and then end up transforming the chorus into something else?
I think the chorus that we had is pretty much the same as it was when I presented the idea to the guys. I think it was just the context, really, that it needed to be presented within, because I don't remember what the argument was. I think it was something like, oh, this is too sparkly and melodic or something, probably at that point, since they only heard the chorus, they assumed that like, oh, the rest of the song is just going to be like really like melodic, and like this just like doesn't really fit in the context of what else is going on around it on the record. But the rest of the song ended up being, contrasted enough to that chorus, putting into context, so that everybody ended up really liking it, to the point where I think that song is actually going to be the leading single for this next record, ironically. So yeah,
Interesting how that works. That's interesting commentary to get back, like, working on something and being like, God, this melody is awesome, and then the comment back be like, that's too pretty. We can't use that. That's happened a few times. Though I've won that battle a few times. Like, it can be beautiful. Like, it can have a beautiful melody and still be insane. Like, it's okay. But sometimes got to listen to them and know where the line is, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I think the other main songwriter in the band is Adam Biggs, our bass player. He's kind of he doesn't write the music, but he's like the lyrics and vocals, does all that. But the music is I kind of filter it through him, and he's more of like he likes, Mr. Bungle and like loud, noisy King Crimson stuff, whereas like I'm more of the like melodic dude. So like that's where the comments like that will come from, where I'm like, man, I got this killer like epic cinematic like huge thing, and I'll send it to him and he'll be like, too sparkly,
Not fucked up enough.
Yeah, not fucked up enough. Yeah, like yeah. So there's a lot of push and pull between the two of us, but I think ultimately it ends up benefiting the songwriting process, because I think if I was left to my own devices, everything would probably just end up sounding like a movie score or something, and if he was left to his own devices, we would just probably sound just super dissonant at all times. So it's a interesting writing partnership, I would say.
I definitely feel like the solo writing is not nearly as good as with the right partners. I'm curious, when you get that feedback of a part where it's like it's not something enough, like it's not fucked up enough, or it's cool but not that cool, or whatever the feedback is, but you've worked on that part for a while, and you've, like, in your head it makes perfect sense, and obviously you liked it enough to submit it. How do you basically cleanse yourself of hearing that when it goes to that part? Like, how do you basically flush that, purge it, so that you can create something totally new? I notice we hear this at Riffhard a lot, and I know personally it can be challenging sometimes. So I know this is kind of a universal problem for people who write, but trying to come up with something new when you decided that a part isn't cutting it, it can be tough. I'm wondering how you go about that.
Yeah, usually I'll step away from it for a while, and I think that what I was talking about earlier, about how more recently I'll start a lot of stuff and just kind of let it sit around, and then we'll incubate over like, what's going to make it. I think that might be part of the reason why my songwriting process has changed, because I think part of it at this point is when I do send something that, I might get comments back like we were saying, like, oh, like, this needs to change, or I don't like what this goes into. I think that I need to take time away from it and then come back to it with fresh ears a lot of the times. And sometimes working on a whole other song, completing a whole nother song, and then coming back to something is enough of a palate cleanser for me that I can approach it with new ears or sometimes it's just really a matter. It's weird. Sometimes it's just a matter of like changing a drum fill or uh, adding a layer of something else. Like it's really strange how you can just kind of like repackage something and make it completely different, but really it hasn't changed that much. I don't know. So, but generally, as a rule of thumb, I'll take time away from it because I'll get super into one idea, work on it for several consecutive days, be super in love with it, send it, not get the reaction that I'm hoping for, not told that the idea shouldn't be used at all, but maybe that it needs to be worked on. And then usually I'll take some time away from it, work on something else and come back. And that's usually how we end up with, with the final product. Like both of those songs that I had mentioned that we were going to scrap were exactly that. I presented an idea, wasn't received super well, so took a bunch of time away from it, wrote several more songs for the record, and then when I came back to it, finished it, and it ended up being something that was, one of our favorite things. I think taking time away from stuff and not obsessing over it is something that I've had to learn over the years because, like I said, I used to really focus on like one song at a time and just like get that one song as done as good as possible. Sometimes I would spend months on a song, but over the years, it's changed to where I've realized that giving myself the time and space to be away from something if it needs to change is ultimately a useful tool in my toolbox.
I've noticed that it actually. Let me backtrack for a second. I've been reading and kind of studying a bit about how attention works, and mental stamina for things and mental focus. And one of the things that there's a lot of research showing it that we have a lot more energy and creativity during a day if we spread it out over in different contexts, and we have very limited capacity to stick to just one thing. So you'll have like 90 minutes or 2 hours, or if you're a real freak, like 3 hours of intense focus before you start to get like your brain starts to run out of RAM. And at that point, the best thing you could do is to just switch your context, or like de-screen, go outside, and then come back and work on something different. Where a lot of people go wrong is they'll just keep on pushing against the same thing. And sometimes that leads to good things. Like if you push long enough through that shitty period, your brain it'll get like a second wind eventually. Like that does happen. But if you just renew the context more often than not, you'll have a new round of creativity. It's pretty impressive. I've been trying to do that now that I learned about that, and the effectiveness is crazy. But to what you were saying about writing many things at the same time, that kind of fits with that, I think, where if you're on one song, you might hit walls when you're working on one song and one song only, to where you're kind of going down weird negative rabbit holes and not sure how to get out of certain like corners you write yourself into, and not getting enough perspective to get a good idea for what to do. Whereas you're continually switching contexts, I think that you're more likely to get some perspective on what to do and renew your creativity. Go back to that thing that's holding you up with like a fresh head.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say that on a good day, I probably get like, if I'm like really cooking, I probably get like 4 to 5 hours of real serious, like hyper focused creative energy. And then after that, it's like I start to just feel, just burned out. As much as I would love to be one of those guys who's, writing into the wee hours of the morning, the artist with the candle lit in the corner,
But what time did they start?
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, I'm like such a such a basic like 9 to 5 creative guy, I guess. I would say that I ideally I would start working on something maybe 11 a.m., wrap it up by like 4 p.m. Like that, I would say like 11 to 4 is like the best bracket for me, success wise, historically speaking, for writing stuff. I've just never been able to write in the super late at night, as cool as it would be. I've just never been able to do that. Once the sun goes down, my brain kind of just, is like, well, time to wind down, time to, during the day, daylight hours, office hours, I guess, is when I found that I'm definitely the most productive with being creative.
Like a normal functioning human.
Right. Well, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
The writing at night thing, I have a hard time working late at night these days. It's been kind of a gradual thing, but I feel like even if you can muscle it out, lots of times it's just not worth it because you're not going to get the same results as you would when you're fresh. I started to learn this when I was producing bands. That's kind of what keyed me in on it, is because, these bands we know there's some members that are super type A driven motherfuckers, and especially the drummers. So it started to dawn on me when I was recording some just insane drummers that they will go as long as humanly possible because that's how their brain is wired. And at some point, they're starting to play worse and worse and worse. But because, the way that they got awesome was by never quitting and by just keeping on going and having insane work ethic. So you're in the studio, it's been 6 or 7 hours of intense technical metal drumming, and they have crossed past their peak and are now on the descent. But mentally, they're not cool with stopping. And once I started to realize it would be a lot better if this dude just stopped, had dinner and chilled out and went to sleep. And then in the morning, this thing he's trying to do now that would take 90 minutes, he would do in 20 minutes and it would be better. And having to start communicating that to those drummers and some guitar players I started to realize that I do that too. I have that voice also that's like, keep going, keep going, keep going. But that voice is stupid. It's like, that's only good for certain things, like long distance running or something, or surviving in the wilderness. But it's not that good if you're trying to record something or write something, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I would say I'm not totally immune to it. I do catch myself if I'm really into something. I will definitely get to that point that you brought up where, if I would just like, go do something else, go to bed, start the next day, I'd probably get it done a lot quicker, but you're just kind of on that roll, and I'm the kind of guy who once I get on it, like on the snowball of creativity, I'm really stoked on what I'm doing. I won't eat water, like I won't go to the bathroom, like, luckily, me and my girlfriend, live together, and she's always good about like, hey, you haven't eaten in 10 hours, like maybe time to go get some food. And like, at first I'll be like, the song, but realistically, it's like, yeah, you should probably just go eat. So I've gotten better at that over the years, I would say. And I think that's probably why my process has changed, with not just hyper focusing on one thing, just kind of doing little snippets of things, and then being able to look at 20 different small ideas and picking which ones I want to continue to work on, rather than just committing to like one song at a time.
When you've been in that like don't eat for 10 hours, go on a roll mode, is there a point though where you're mentally on the roll, but the quality of what you're writing is starting to slow down or degrade? I've noticed I have a telltale sign, or basically like a red flag. When I start doing this, I know it's time to start thinking about wrapping it up, is when I start listening to the song over and over or do a part, I start looping it too much, like where I'm just like listening instead of working on it. I don't mean listening back to what you did. I mean like listening to it on a loop where and just kind of like spacing out. That's when it's like, all right, time to think about wrapping this up.
Yeah, I think that something that is, because what I'll end up doing is kind of similar to that. I'll just end up, if I finish up like say a chorus and a verse, and then I need to figure out, oh, what am I going to do for this bridge or something, and I'm kind of like, if I've been working on stuff for a while and I'm in that like haven't eaten mode, I'll end up just kind of thinking about what I've been working on all day too much, and whatever I come up with next will be maybe too related to what I've already written. It won't be different enough. So I think something that's a process for sure is, bouncing out what I've done that day to a link, and then getting in my car, whether it's that night to like go to the store or the next morning when I'm driving somewhere, and putting on what I've done that day or the previous day, and being able to maybe visualize what might come next. Because being able to sit in your car, just kind of, focused on driving, listen to something passively kind of, and just maybe imagine what might come next. That's definitely been a big part of my process, is really the car test. And I don't mean mix wise, but just the car test of being able to go on a drive, listen to something that you're working on, and maybe, picture what would come next. And oftentimes it'll come to me pretty easily if I give it a day or two, and then I just jump right back in the next time at my computer and continue. It's definitely, the phone bounce thing is definitely a huge part of my process, I would say.
Same, but for me there's a trap with that, which is for me to have the discipline to not listen to it too much. Listen to it enough to get that insight you're talking about, and then put it down. Because I've noticed that if I'm not careful, I'll just listen to it for like 3 hours straight or something. Like, especially if I'm really into something I just wrote, like just over and over and over and over and over and over again. But that's bad, because I feel like doing that is removing energy from the writing session. Because by the time you get back to it, you're more used to it. Like you're more used to it. It's less special. You've heard it too many times. So like I've been trying to this composer David Levy, who I had on here a while ago, he told me that he does that. Like once he starts writing something, he tries to listen to it as little as possible, because he feels like every time you listen to it, you're taking away that much more spark from the actual writing. So I've started to try to discipline myself to where it's like, yes, I will bounce it and do that drive like you talked about or whatever, and get the, try to imagine what's coming next, or assess if that part really sucks or whatever, and then drop it and move on.
Yeah,
it's hard to do.
Definitely, yeah. It's I'll definitely, I'm guilty of listening to stuff too much, especially if it's something that I'm really stoked on. But generally, I would say, especially if I'm just listening to other music, and I'll just like throw in something that I, was working on in between other songs from, bands that I like. Oftentimes it'll, if I keep it to that, a couple times maybe, it's pretty easy for me to just imagine what might come next. So yeah, just giving it some space and time is definitely a discipline that I would say developed in like the last 5 years, whereas before I definitely would just obsess over something to the point of getting nothing else done, and if I wasn't getting done with that one song, I wasn't getting anything done. So it's definitely it's been a valuable thing for me to develop, I would say.
How do you fit practice into into this. Like, how does practice work for you these days?
I mean, practice is really just, I mean, it's the same as it was before. I'll write stuff each album cycle that's a little bit, above, my reach at the time of writing it, and just get real good at playing it. I would say that I don't have designated, like, just sit down and woodshed sessions any longer. Most of my time is spent writing. Like, that really is my practice, I guess. And writing and recording stuff, really uh, getting to, obviously, like, we have shows and tours and stuff that are going on. So in between writing, I'll have designated times where I'll just run the set. And running the set is definitely something that will help my playing improve. But I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say I have designated woodshedding sessions. I just kind of don't have the time for it. But really recording yourself and knowing how to record yourself well has been an invaluable tool to me as a player. Just knowing, being able to look at the waveform on, an alternate pick part, where I see, like, oh, the upstroke is, like, weaker than the downstroke. Like, that's something that I've really been working on a lot, slowly over the last few years, is just getting my upstrokes to sound as close to my downstrokes as I possibly can. And I don't think without, being able to record myself and just being super comfortable with that process, that I would have been able to develop that. Cause, I'll just being able to, like I said, see the waveform of what I'm playing and be able to just visually pick out, like, oh, well, that sucks. Like, I could do that better. That's definitely been a big learning experience for me, and it's definitely improved my playing, I would say, overall.
I was watching a Paul Gilbert video a couple of years ago where he basically was espousing the gospel of upstrokes, and was like, anytime I'm, like, doing a lesson with like a pro or a peer, or talking shop with a peer, and they have something to get ready for that they're scared of, like some tour where they had to play some solo that is giving them nightmares, or they got to go audition for something, or who knows, whatever it is, something's coming up. And he said that basically 9 out of 10 times that if you analyze what was wrong, they needed stronger upstrokes. And if they just got their upstrokes together, all this other stuff would just magically fall into place. And I agree with that. It's one of those things that it's like, it's foundational, right? Because you're alternate picking so much that if half of your pick strokes are weak, that's a problem, and it's going to throw off your coordination too. So it's not just the fact that your upstrokes are weaker. It's that they're weaker, but also the connection to your other hand is weaker. And I've noticed that by strengthening upstrokes, like, everything gets better. It's crazy.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily a matter of just upstroking, like, harder. I would say it's just more about having consistency between the downstrokes and the upstrokes, because something else that I've really been focusing on within the last couple of years actually is picking a little lighter. Just I used to be, like, super just, like, pick it as hard as I possibly can, and I realized that some of the more technical stuff, even, like, just through recording, I noticed that, like, actually the guitar would actually sound better on certain things when I would pick the stuff lighter, just so I think just overall having control over the upstrokes is more what it's about, not necessarily, doing them harder. Like actually the Riffhard, the down picking gym thing, I actually kind of reverse engineer that, and so part of my warm up is doing that to a metronome, the regular down picking thing. And then I'll do the same thing, but on upstrokes. So, like, the up picking gym, what I mean? And that's definitely something you know,
Smart man.
I'll just do them consecutively, and that's really, really helped with my playing overall, just being more consistent, and just like not tensing up, you know, with the upstrokes, because yeah, it's been really helpful just working on the upstrokes and picking a little lighter in certain cases, because I think that at least, you know, me and a lot of my friends grew up just like thinking like, you know, you gotta hit the hell out of those strings,
Yep.
which was just like, you know, it's true in certain cases. I still believe, but not in every case. I would say in some cases picking harder actually ends up sounding worse. It just really depends on what it is that you're playing. So yeah, but really focusing on those upstrokes um, has definitely helped my playing. I think, you know, we did a tour back in 2022 with Alluvial, and I, you know, was just hanging out with Wes and was watching his warm up, you know, what he did. And like he, you know, as part of his warm up on that tour, he was, you know, doing just like doing upstroke exercises, which is something that like I never cooked into my warm-up routine, and I kind of started doing it on that tour, and I didn't stop. And it's like just that one little tweak has made me a much better player, I would say.
What is your warm up routine?
I mean, I'm honestly a very terrible warm-up guy. Like sometimes I'll just go in cold on stage.
Wow.
But
Wow.
yeah,
Ballsy.
I mean, the other dudes in my band, 3 of them sing, so they'll be doing their like vocal warm-ups. You know, Andy, our other guitar player, he's constantly got a guitar in his hand. He's like one of those guys. But there are certain days where like I won't even, you know, I won't even touch my guitar before we go on stage. But usually what I do without fail is I do those Petrucci stretching exercises, you know.
Hmm.
At the very least, that'll help me. But when I can get like a decent area to get my stuff set up, practice amp or even just a metronome, I'll just, you know, put the metronome on like 100 beats per minute or something like that, and just, you know, do downstrokes, different subdivisions, do upstrokes, different subdivisions. I'll do this like pull off thing with each finger, where, you know, I'll start like, you know, I'll anchor on the first fret, and then I'll pull off on the second with my middle finger. I'll pull off on the third with my ring finger. I'll pull off on the fourth with my pinky, and then I'll reach up to the fifth with my pinky and go back down. And I'll do that on every string. That's actually another thing that Wes showed me, and that'll get my left hand really warmed up. And as for the right hand, it's mostly just, you know, downstrokes and upstrokes to a metronome. I'm trying to get better about it though. I actually just ordered a one of those Spark amps, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
from Positive Grid.
Yep.
Because I feel like I always buy different practice amps, and there's always something that, you know, whether it's their battery power, and like can't find where to get batteries, so I just end up like not getting batteries for the rest of the tour, and then I don't plug it in the practice amp, or I need a cable to like plug my phone into it. Like I did some research and I found that amp, you don't need a cable to get your phone to connect to it. It's rechargeable batteries. It's the
Yes.
size, it's like the size of a guitar pedal. So like I literally just ordered it yesterday for these shows that we have coming up in a few weeks, and I'm really going to try to get better
Is it the
about
Go?
yeah, the Go, yeah. I think I saw some video of Frederick from Opeth playing it in their green room, and it sounded awesome. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get it. It seems like if I have this, I'll have no excuse not to sit there and like run the set. Because I think I saw an interview with him, with Frederick from Opeth, and he was saying that he'll often run the entire set before they even get on stage, and it just helps alleviate stress for him and kind of be able to just enjoy the show instead of
Without a click or anything. He just does it free balling.
I mean, yeah, he's a monster, dude.
Yeah. He's like this. He's the secret weapon.
Dude.
I think people don't understand. Like, I think some people know how good he is, but I feel like not enough people recognize how insane that guy is.
Oh man, a true fan. I think he's like one of the most underrated dudes in the game.
Absolutely.
Like, I think he should be in every conversation, you know. Has he been on on the podcast?
Yeah,
yet?
we just did one, but
Okay.
it's coming out like this week or next week. But I've known him forever,
Okay.
and so I've always been really aware of just how phenomenal this dude is.
I mean, I followed him since like Arch Enemy, you know, back in the day. So I've always been aware of how sick he is. But yeah, I saw him using that amp, and I was like, you know what? I need to get better. I just need to get better about my practice setup before, because I've been fine going in cold. When I do go in cold, it's been fine, but like, I'm being completely honest with myself, probably could be better. And I think that taking a little time to just have somewhat of a better ritual before I get on stage would probably be good for me. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm trying to get better at practicing, everybody. That's my promise to myself here.
I'm also getting a spark go actually for our tour coming up in March, because I have to warm up. There's no way around it. I'm like two different guitar players warmed up and not. It's not subtle. It's horrifying how bad I am without being warmed up. So it's kind of a requirement, and I have a spark, not the go, but out of all the practice amps I've ever owned, for whatever reason, that's the one that I have used the longest. Back in the day, I had a microcube. It's kind of similar to a microcube. That one stuck around a while, but besides the microcube, like a long time ago, and the Spark, I've never had a practice amp that kind of covers all the bases well enough for a practice amp. So I'm actually, I'm getting a go specifically for that tour, so I can be warming up and not be in the way of anything.
Yeah, I've had tons of practice amps over the years, but I need like the lowest barrier of entry possible to practice. Like, if I have to find a outlet in a crowded green room that's basically a glorified locker room, you know what I mean? Got to move a bunch of people, like, I won't do it. So like, it's like, okay, I have an amp now. It's the size of a pack of cigarettes, basically. It's rechargeable, so the batteries aren't an excuse. I don't need a cable for the Bluetooth. My in-ears right into it. Like, I won't have any excuse. That's what I think anyway. So we'll see how it goes.
That's let me know how that goes, because I'm getting one really soon. I guess we're running out of time. I guess this perfect time as any to mention that we're doing a tour together with Cynic and Beyond Creation in March in Europe, the Aggressive Progressive tour, and stoked to go out with you guys.
Yeah, we're really stoked too, man. Obviously, known you for a long time, and seeing the band get back together, and everything you guys have been doing has been awesome. So we're stoked to have you guys out with us, obviously. And we've known the Beyond Creation guys for a long time, toured with them a bunch, and Cynic is like, they were a life-changing band for me. So getting to tour with those guys is going to be really, really awesome. They definitely cracked my brain open in high school when they put out Trace and Air. So very stoked to do this tour. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and likewise, it's been really awesome watching you guys go from a band that Umanov was telling me about in the in the U.S. Northeast to like seeing how you guys have developed has been really, really fucking cool. It's awesome seeing it work, especially for bands that make weird music. Like it's inspiring.
Yeah, man. And ironically, I mean, I think you already knew this, but I mean, Jesse is the guy that introduced us to Ben. So, I mean, we were literally on tour with Binary Code the first time we met Ben. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting full circle kind of thing, I think.
This world it's a small world, but also as far as Cynic goes, we toured with them in 2009. It was us and Dragon Force and Cynic, kind of a weird lineup.
I was at that tour.
Oh,
at
okay.
the Croc Rock in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
I remember. I kind of remember that show.
Yep.
But it's been kind of a thing. Like, loved touring with Cynic. Just kind of connected with them, and it was same thing where like this is a band that kind of broke everybody's brain. And now they're back. So it's really, really cool. Our first tour back to have Cynic on it is great.
Yeah. We're super stoked, man. We're doing new stuff on this tour that we've never done before. Finally getting a light show time coded and everything. So we're gonna be I think it's gonna be awesome. I think people are gonna be really stoked on what we've got cooking up, and the lineup is obviously fantastic. So definitely can't wait to get on a bus with y'all.
Yeah, and a bunch of other people.
Yes, many.
Yeah. It's are you guys doing your own lights?
Yes, we are. I have a buddy who worked for Bad Omens for a while. He works for Era now. He's done stuff for Throne and yeah, I'm blanking here, but
Throne, Buster's band.
Yeah. He just did whatever tour Throne just did in the U.S. He was doing lights for like that whole package. But yeah, he's a guy I've known for a long time, and he's working out of this production facility, which is like 20 minutes from my house. And and he was just like, hey, like, guys should let me time code a show for you. So we're going for it. But yeah, we're gonna be running our own lights, and should be sick. I'm stoked to finally, because we've had light guys just kind of punting lights, but we've never had anything super synced up with every hit. So I'm pretty stoked to have that consistency every night.
It makes a difference.
Yeah, I mean,
it really does.
I mean, I kind of saw it firsthand. I recently saw Meshuggah. I think it was like at the end of last year. I saw them when they were on that tour with In Flames and Whitechapel, and the last time I had seen them was in 2011, I think. And I don't think they were time coded back then. And not that their show was not good back then; it was obviously insane still. But like every single thing was synced up when I saw them recently, and every squeal and like feedback noise on the samples between songs, it was just like blew my mind. So stoked to get something going that'll be locked in like that.
Awesome, man. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys do. The automated lights is something that has fascinated me. Actually, on that Dragon Force tour, we did that, but we weren't allowed to bring a light guy, and we weren't allowed to have quote unquote lights. And we figured out a loophole, which was to basically bolt them onto our rigs, and we figured out how to program them ourselves. Like, this was a long time ago, and before the technology was common, I guess. So no one had heard of a band doing that, which is how we were able to kind of get around the rules. But it made the show a million times better. Now it's so much better than it used to be, because now you can do it with like full rigs and stuff.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, basically there's like a node that connects our session laptop to the laptop that runs the time coding, and basically wherever I scroll in our session on like the session that has our clicks and stuff like that, wherever I scroll in there, it just automatically jumps to it on the timecode laptop. So stoked to see how it all works. I'm sure I'll be learning a lot coming up here, but I'm stoked to see it all come to fruition, man.
Killer, man. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to hang out, and good luck, of course, with the re-release, and I'll see you next year.
All right, man. See you soon.